Call Blackstone Millville Regional District School Committee meeting for Thursday, March 26th to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Introduction of members.
Steve Tringali from Millville.
Brian Faulkner, Millville.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Jet Jarrett, Blackstone.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone. Erin Monaco, Millville.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
Ellen Himmelberg, Superintendent.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone. So we'll move right into the meeting. We have public forum. If anyone wants to jump up now. Actually, we had you at student presentation, but you can come now if you like. I had you on the agenda. You could have waited until I called for it.
I'll say this on the agenda.
Very nice. Sitting right up front. Every meeting.
Careful, someone's
All right. Nice.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Let's keep clear.
So it can be taken away like that.
Will be.
Alright, and then we have this little poem that we wrote for you.
We love all the things that you do. You have a good attitude, yes you do. You work really hard in the budget, yes you do. You look really good on TV, yes you do. We appreciate all that you did and do. Yes, you do.
Back it up 10 seconds.
Alright, let's keep it right there. Good thing can always be done twice.
That's right. That's right.
We appreciate taking from the end.
We appreciate all that you did. Yes, we do. Thank you for all that you did and do.
Right, come over there and get a picture with those guys.
Take me a minute to get over there. Get a pen.
Hold your shirt.
It works for us.
You can get in there too, Edie. We know you want to be in there. Squeeze it in. There we go. Ready? Well done. Nice.
I like the use of the free t-shirts, by the way. Thank you very much, Mr. Chaplin. I just wanted to thank the students for being here tonight and to recognize Mr. Faulkner. He has been working on our behalf right up until the very end of his term. I got an email and phone call from him last week that his company was getting ready to discard tables, chairs, filing cabinets, and he wanted to know if we might be interested. And we are, and so we were able to drive up and get them. If we had to purchase them new, it's well over $10,000 worth of equipment that Mr. Faulkner, through his own time and effort, made sure that we got them before they hit the recycle pile. So I wanted to say thank you very much for a kind gesture that he didn't have to do right up.
No, it's not.
Live streaming. Streaming? Okay, he doesn't have streaming yet, so thank you. I'm glad it was put to good use. And we'll see that line budget, right? It's already up.
And we're going to have some nice words to say about you, Brian, too, a little later.
Excellent. I'll stay.
Over some cake.
I'll stay.
Awesome. Okay, moving forward. Student. We need a mic.
Usually grab the wireless one.
Yes.
All right. Well, to start, a big thank you to you. And then it's been a while since we've been here. I'm missing my counterpart today. So we have a lot to go over. To start, spring sports started last week, I believe. Doesn't feel like spring sports. Feels like we're still in winter sport time. I know the tennis court is nearly cleared off. Getting there. Baseball's in the gym right next door right now. And nobody's really made it outside yet. So once the snow melts, the weather is warm, we're excited to get at it. Recently we had the Band Aid. This is where local bands come to BMR and they play. It's kind of a fun event. The whole school, we get the whole school to try to attend. And that was a big success. Mr. BMR, the annual event we always put on, is coming soon. I'm not sure the exact date on that. That's always a hysterical show to go to. And will it be your first Mr. BMR's? You gotta see this.
I guess I'll be there.
Yeah, you should be there. It's a fun time. Everybody should come out and see it. The money goes back to the school, obviously. So, and then new with student council. We had our annual conference down in Hyannis. It was an amazing conference. Some great public speakers. We attended and we presented some great workshops as a school. And we ended up getting a Silver Council Award, which we submit a booklet of all the events specific to their criteria, the state board's criteria. And we were close to gold, but we didn't get gold this year. We're really hoping for it next year, but we got a Silver Council. And then the spring conference is coming up soon. I believe that is April 8th. And that's just a regional conference, so that's also coming up soon. Autism Awareness Month is April. Student Council, we're not quite sure what we're going to do for it yet, but we're definitely going to raise money for it. We did last year. We sold the puzzle pieces because that's their symbol. And then the Corey's Crusaders walk-in road race is May 3rd this year. That is being helped out by NHS and Student Council. That's a really fun event. It's one of the times the whole community, Blackstone and Millville, comes together and really supports the town. It's a really fun event. And then bands, not too familiar with band, but I'll do my best here. Winter Percussion has the NESBA finals Saturday. Wind Ensemble has their finals Sunday. And Winter Guard has their finals next weekend. That was told to me over text by Griffin, so I hope that's all right. And then a few weeks ago, progress reports came out, and then the third quarter ends April 15th, and report cards will follow a few days after that. That's all I got for today.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. And I know you're not a senior yet. Next year, I won't be here to ask you. So, how many more days did seniors have?
I actually asked one of them today, and first I got an answer of 50 days, and then I got a, 30-something days. So, I don't know what that means.
One's a committed day and one's a hopeful day.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think
so somewhere between 37 and 50. That is it down.
Somewhere in the 30
Hopefully, graduation falls after one of those days. Yes. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Excellent. Good job as always, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving forward, the consent agenda A, warrants, field trip requests, UC facilities, minutes of meeting, March 12th. Mr. Tringali. Second. Are you doing the whole consent agenda? Yeah, we're just doing it separately. Okay. Second by Mr. Faulkner. Any other further discussion? All in favor, so saying aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Unanimous. School committee. We have plenty to talk about. We can move forward with that. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaplin. We have lots to discuss this evening, but I wanted to let the committee know and everyone watching that our marching band has a special invitation, so I invited Mr. Schaefer to come up and fill us in.
Thank you very much for talking about it. We were invited to perform at the Gator Bowl, which is now called the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. The way it works is the trip would be over the holiday vacation. We'd be leaving December 28th, and we'd be returning late in the evening of January 1st this next school year. And while we're down there, we get to march in the Gator Bowl parade, which is in downtown Jacksonville. We compete in a field competition where the winner gets a $10,000 prize, as well as they get to perform their entire show at halftime of the actual Gator Bowl, with potential of very, very limited television exposure. If you ever watch a bowl game, sometimes it's as much as 2 or 3 seconds. But it's the potential's there. As well as getting to partake in the Gator Bowl pep rally with the 2 college marching bands of whatever colleges are there competing in the bowl game. It's something that we've never done in this program. It's a different opportunity. We try to go on a quote big trip every 4 years, and next year would be that year for a big trip. And instead of just doing our usual Disney trip, I was approached. Actually, we were invited to partake in this competition. Basically, the committee that runs this whole thing, we're trying to find bands that they thought were at a higher level, and they saw some videos of our marching band on YouTube, and we were invited down. So it's like I said, it's a unique opportunity for these students, and it's just one more thing that we try as a program to give these kids some new experiences. So, and of course, we always make sure that when we go on our trips, we give kids time to be kids. So we would spend about a day and a half at Universal Studios before we did all the parade and competition and pep rally and that. So, like I said, it's a different opportunity, but something that I'm hopeful for. Obviously, ask for your approval to do. We would not have to miss any school. It is over the holiday break.
Great. Any questions for the committee?
You get to watch the game?
Probably not much. We get to.
You'll be in the stadium.
We will be probably in the tunnel of the stadium. So we'll get to hear the game.
Yeah. What a great experience. I think that's actually. And I'm glad you told us that they came to you. It's not something you went out and solicited an opportunity to do. They came and found you guys. So.
Yeah, that was a neat surprise.
You'd fly, Todd?
Yes, we would fly.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you just talk numbers? How many kids are going to be going? How many chaperones? All that kind of stuff.
In terms of exact numbers, obviously, I'm hoping that we get about 110 kids to go. For the 110 kids, we probably want to go with about 20 chaperones, including the 3 amusement department staff members. So it'd be like last time we went to Florida, I think we ended up going with 150 altogether. This time I think it'd be a little bit less, so it'd probably be about 130, 135.
Any other questions or comments?
I just think I agree. It's excellent. I mean, the Disney thing, a lot of bands go through Disney because they're open every day. There's only one Gator Bowl per year, from what I remember. Right. So that's great. What a great recognition of the school and of the band.
So, if there's no more discussion, I'm looking for a motion to approve Todd's request.
To approve the band trip to the Gator Bowl. Second.
Motion made by Jane, seconded by Wendy. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, so say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Unanimous, Todd. Thank you very much. Yep. Good luck. Nice. Don't forget to put
not used to it.
Moving along, as you see in the packet, we have some surplus items. All of our buildings do have some items that are beyond their useful life, broken and or ancient, beyond repair. And we have JFK and AFM's surplus items. These are bulky, take up a lot of space, and certainly, in everybody's opinion, need to go as quickly as possible. And the first step is to be surplused by the committee. When you look at some of these items, you say, well, how can a VCR or a piano be beyond its useful life? JFK is approaching 50 years old, and there's a lot of things in there that are beyond their useful life. And this list begins to scratch the surface. So certainly there's nothing in here that I haven't seen that I would disagree with. And would ask the committee to approve it to the surplus.
So, just so clarify, so once we do this, it then goes and gets, do we get money for it? Do we get scrap metal for it? What do we?
I believe because these items were originally purchased with taxpayers' dollars, that it will go back to the town for their disposal. In some cases, they may choose to try and auction and or surplus themselves. In most cases, they just say, please get rid of it. So I believe from the committee, it goes back to the town.
Okay, look for a motion. Any questions, discussion on the surplus of these items? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions, unanimous. Okay.
Thank you. Next, we are very fortunate that we have with us Mr. Ken Lombardi, who is about as knowledgeable in the landscape of health insurance as anyone that I have met, and he is our consultant and advisor. We were hit with a rather substantial renewal from our Maya Trust, and it didn't make sense based upon census and usage and claims experience. And so I asked Mr. Lombardi to come to explain to the committee where we are and how we're moving forward in the time frame that we have.
Welcome. Passing around an agenda so folks can see some of the discussion that's happening on today. So, as the superintendent had mentioned, the school district received a pretty significant rate increase this year from the insurance carrier. So, to try and make sure people are clear on exactly what has transpired, I wanted to go over a couple of things. We call those what's happening with the marketplace dynamics. So that everyone's clear, the health insurance program that the district offers its employees is actually insured through what we refer to as a large joint purchasing arrangement in Massachusetts. Some of you might be historically familiar with it, but it's called the MIIA, Massachusetts Local Insurance Association. It covers about 125 cities and towns and school districts in Massachusetts right now. So the value proposition for an organization having its insurance through MIIA is obviously it's a large purchasing organization, and the whole idea is to spread risk and reduce costs and obviously provide the employees with some valuable benefits. By and large, though, what we're looking for when we participate with the Maya Trust is some consistency in rating from year to year, and that's the whole idea. So there's a couple of tweaks in the marketplace this year we haven't really seen over the last several years. Some of it's related to the Group Insurance Commission, and what that simply is the largest state, the largest population of purchasing groups in Massachusetts is actually the state employees and about 40 cities and towns and school districts that are part of the state Group Insurance Commission program. So you may have heard that the GIC this year, and I'll get to the reason why I'm talking about it,
actually created a significant deficit, almost as much as $190 million structurally, which means that they didn't have enough money to pay for their expenses through the current fiscal year. So you probably heard the governor mention something about the most recent budget having that being part of the deficit. The issue with the Group Insurance Commission, and the reason why it sort of has a negative impact on us, even though we're not covered through the GIC, was that I think it enabled Maya, a little bit of this is speculation and opinion, to sort of sit back and kind of wait to see how they were going to set their renewal rates this year for all of their clients. Normally what Maya does is they set a range of rates that clients end up in, and usually it's a 0 to 5, or 0 to 7. And you may recall we wasn't here last year because the renewal was 0, so there was obviously an acceptable level of increase. But this year was 3 to 10.9%. So all of the clients in Maya got something in that range. Most groups did end up with a 10.9% like the district did here. Part of the response from addressing the reasons to the Maya management team was, well, GIC is increasing 9.2%. That was their rate increase from this July 1st. And modifying benefits, so we think we benchmark favorably with the largest purchasing co-op in the state. It's sort of irrelevant to the school district's health plan, and as I mentioned to the school superintendent, it is puzzling because the group's health care plan experience, which is the way premium rates are set, consists of all of the members that are in the health plans that are provided through Maya. Their claims data, the benefits incurred, creates what we refer to as a loss ratio compared to the premium that you and the employees pay. And I've indicated what those ratios are over the last 2.5 years, if you will, and they're not significant. In fact, they're pretty attractive as far as an insurance risk is concerned. I mentioned to the school superintendent earlier that under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if you will, there's actually a designated medical loss ratio that carriers are supposed to manage to. And that impacts sort of smaller employers, and that level is 87%. What that means is the claims incurred by the membership has to be paid out at 87% of the premium charge, or there's a refund entitled to the sort of like a dividend to the client. While we're not entitled to that because of the size of our organization, these are pretty dramatic loss ratios. As you can see, 77%, 82%, 77%. So what that means is we're paying premium to the Maya Health Trust. We would like to see them pay you back 85 to 90 cents in claim dollars. They're paying less than that. So I think we're sort of on the end of the spectrum where we're actually contributing, again, speculation opinion, to the surplus of the Maya Trust. So there's some communities in there that are benefiting from your extra premium being paid. It would have been a more appropriate or reasonable to see maybe a 5 or 6% adjustment from them, knowing that the Affordable Care Act does impact the school district, not picking on that, but the first 2.5% of any rate increase this year from any employer plan are included as pass-through expenses that end up going to the government as part of the Affordable Care Act. It's built into your sort of fees, and there's really no getting around it. Not that any of this is supposed to make anyone happy, but the point is this, is that we are in a position where there's not a catastrophic issue with the utilization, because that typically drives premium costs. We are actually in a favorable position. So what this translates to, we are completing a market study right now. So we are looking at other insurance carrier options in the state of Massachusetts. For those of you who have been around for a while, you should recall we were at one point insured with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. We were at one point insured directly with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. We are approaching those carriers as well as Tufts Health Plan, as well as Fallon Community Health Plan, to see if we can create some cost savings opportunities. This increase, which is, I think, a budget impact of close to $300,000 possibly, keep in mind that the largest population, the folks that have family coverage, is above $500 more in annual premium. So it's not just the district's issue. Clearly the membership has a big concern here too, because of the amount of cost increase they're going to see. So with that being said, I've given you some benchmark information. Again, things that aren't going to make anyone feel happy about this information. The premium rates the district has been able to manage to over the last several years have been extremely attractive. But relatively speaking, as a cost of doing business, when there's an increase on even a low-cost basis plan, it is an issue. Again, not to bring the information to make people feel good about it, but the district has done about as good a job it could possibly have done over the point in time up to this point. Again, I'm not saying everyone should be jumping up and down. We still have a challenge ahead of us. But as you can see, I actually benchmarked some of your premium costs against the Group Insurance Commission plans. As you can see, with very similar plan structure, this small organization of roughly 300 participants competes extremely well with the 300,000 employees and members that are in the GIC. So I think the legwork that has been done should be obviously acknowledged, but it doesn't mean there aren't some other options available. I can tell you that in my professional opinion and having some early discussions with the marketplace, there will be cost savings options available. There will be additional discussions with your incumbent insurance company, Maya, to see if there's the interest in negotiating the enforced plans. We certainly don't suggest plan design changes as a mechanism to further modify costs. And the reason being is because the members do have pretty close to the benchmark level that's available in the state today. So, as I mentioned to the school superintendent, this survey is underway. We are planning on meeting with the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee, the engaged employees that participate in this process. And it's likely we'll have some meaningful savings options to discuss with the IAC. And I am confident we'll be able to meet sort of the July 1st deadline if the open enrollment period in June and things of that nature. So, are there any questions that I can answer for folks?
When are you meeting with the advisory?
That's Thursday, April 9th, so 2 weeks. The IAC is meeting in the afternoon, 2 o'clock.
And when could we request to negotiate with Maya?
We've already started.
He's reviewing this.
Any other comments or questions? So, my initial reaction, I think you have validated that $2.7 million worth of business with favorable loss ratios, outstanding census and claims experience should make somebody very willing to help us lower that.
Yes, I believe we'll have viable options for the membership to review. So the due diligence process is, of course, we want to make sure what's presented is comprehensive, creates little, if any, network disruption with providers. So we'll be sensitive to sort of that part of the arrangement. We do have a responsibility under Mass General Law to meet with the IAC and present options. We'll certainly engage them. We've done that in the past. We've had plenty of meetings with the employees, in the school auditorium explaining what these options might be. It's never easy. Healthcare is complicated. Not all of the members will understand what we're proposing. So we'll hopefully work with the IAC as a microcosm to try and come up with something that's hopefully relatively attractive.
Okay, would it be safe to say that in 2 weeks, on the 9th, you'll have some meaningful information for the IAC?
All of the carriers have all the necessary transfer business information to compile the proposals.
So you mentioned out of the 125 cities, towns, and school districts that are in this health trust, you said a large majority of them landed at that 10-point.
I'm afraid so. Yeah, for many of my clients.
Yeah. So that was kind of their starting point, and now we're going to start talking, or we're going to go elsewhere.
I don't think the business process has to occur in exactly that manner. I mean, as much as we like the value of them being a big carry, giving us some protection, it's not obvious today. I mean, I don't think the school district or the committee should simply kind of think about the long-term value when we expected some better results given the performance of the school district by itself. Now, are there years when clearly we would look to that cap to help? Yes, absolutely, but I don't know that you're in a position to really engage in that manner of the process. I think you have to do whatever is humanly possible to come up with an option.
I disagree.
And also, at our statewide superintendent's meeting last week, there are several districts insured through the Maya Trust that have exceeded the 10.9. Several of them are 13 and 14%. So it does strike one as concerning as to how they arrive at their numbers. But obviously, we will do everything we can to get the best rates.
Just for the public's information, what did we budget in this 2016 increase?
Currently in the budget is about a 5% increase, which is about $150,000 in there. But that 5% was the incentive placeholder. Like many parts of the budget, there's a lot of changes and moving parts, but we have it in there as a placeholder at 5%.
If I might add, there's certainly, and I know that the superintendent understands is that if the target is 5% for the budget, then we really wanted to target something less for premium adjustment. We've got moving parts here, the potential for adding bodies during open enrollment. So it's really critical that we try to manage to as close to that number as possible.
Can I just clarify? So we're talking at least, a minimum of 3%? With this current proposal, it's at least 3%. The range we have here is 3 to 10.9.
So two things. The minimum we would have gotten was 3%. The reasonable or appropriate beginning point for any employer would be at least 2.5. So in other words, we would have expected that our pass-through expenses would add 2.5 points more premium to your current base rate. And then with a little tweaking, maybe 3%. But we do have some municipalities that have seen 3 or 4% rate adjustments. So it's not unlikely and it's not unexpected. But again, none of the underlying groups that at least we're working with have seen anything relatively reasonable.
To have some more interesting number. I remember as a kid a proposition that came through was really 2.5.
I think I've heard of that too.
Yeah, I remember the math behind it. Yeah. But how much of this is really posturing? How much of this is posturing through mathematics? And how much of it is, I said that for your benefit.
Is that a sign you just throwing me there?
No, it's just, we went through this a couple years ago.
I'm happy.
The expectation was it's going to be not, I don't think it was double digit, but it was pretty high.
Well,
came back as very, very low.
I'm not going to disagree with you that the unfortunate part of this, the business process that kind of drags the district through having to worry about this, takes a lot of your energy up. It seems reasonable to me to go back to them with a leverage position if available and say it just doesn't make any sense. There's another carrier or two that's willing to do something. We want to give them every opportunity to meet our expectations. I think that the membership likes Blue Cross Blue Shield in this environment just because of the familiarity with it, the unique nature of your population, the border communities that need access, and only a handful of carriers have that breadth of network. But I think I'm going to agree with you that there should be, in this instance, some posturing that we should be able to leverage.
It always seems that I think we were at 0% last year. We ended up at 0. I think their opening number was like 7%. It always seems like it's a chess game back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I'd like to think it's more complicated than that because that's what I do for a living, but I'm afraid you guys are probably right.
But it is, it's about competition. If you had no competition out there, they'd just be saying it's 10.9, might be even higher.
Our fundamental issue is we have 4 insurance companies in the state. Really, that's it. If we had 15 or 16 that were quality organizations, this whole business would be much different.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Health insurance discussion obviously gets a lot of people's attention. I want to thank Mr. Lombardi for his time. So we'll look forward to in a couple of weeks, hopefully getting some good news. I wanted to thank the members of the various boards for being here this evening. Mrs. Coffin and Mr. Raposa and Mr. Cruzella, Mr. Watson. Great to see you and thank you very much for being here. I wanted to continue with discussion of FY16 and our budget. Handouts on the desk, and there's a lot of information in here as to where we are. I am the new guy, just finishing my third quarter. I know until the calendar turns. So I'm learning the history, I'm learning the resources, I'm learning what our needs are. And however you measure it, you need more money. That's pure and simple. As I have mentioned in previous hearings, finance and public education has got to be a three-way proposition. Two of those ways have abdicated their responsibility. That would be the federal government and the state. And that leaves the lion's share of financing to the local budgets. And when local budgets are built substantially on property tax revenue, it is a challenge for the towns, it's a challenge for the school districts, and it makes things very difficult. When I was a couple of weeks ago talking about the drivers for the budget, I've heard this before, that Chapter 70, which is the primary funding mechanism for public education in the Commonwealth, increased by 2.4% statewide. Unfortunately, our increase was 0.3%. So we only received a $36,000 bump.
Do you guys have this?
On Chapter 70. The state finally has recognized that does need to be revisited. The Budget Review Commission looking at that because the current formula was built on metrics from the early 90s, around head reform in 1993. So salaries have expanded, utility costs have gone up, health insurance, the cost of special education, technology, everything has increased from that initial formula. And the estimates just to satisfy the increases in special education and health insurance are in excess of $2 for the state to come up with the right formula to cover their share of funding public education. And so, obviously, the same health insurance discussion that we just had plays out at the state level because in the year of 2000, the state's share of health insurance costs was about 20% of the state budget, and last year was about 38%. So it's been a huge reallocation of state resources to cover what the state budget needs to cover, and we have seen the ebb and the flow at the state level. At the federal level, politics is making even the reauthorization of the law that governs us put on hold for several years now. So when the federal government decides they want to do something and the states say no, there is a tug of war. And right now, the federal dollars are decreasing in our two main programs. The two main programs that the federal government funds. For special education and Title I. So we have a lot not working in our favor as we try and construct our budget. And we know that the kindergarten grant was eliminated. We understand the argument as to why it was. And that's because most of the state is now full-time kindergarten, so those students are counted full as part of Chapter 70 enrollment. However, that $65,000, which we didn't really see coming, is $65,000 that we're going to have to make up in other areas. Regional transportation has only been funded at 100% once, 80% once, since the institution of checking in 91, is now at $416,000 for next year, if it's funded at 60%. This year, we're looking at about $430,000. So that number continues to slip, that is offsets that we're going to have to make up in other places. Circuit breaker, which is the formula that allows us to get reimbursed for some of our expensive special ed costs, is also funded flat at $253 across the state. And as the numbers increase, that percentage is decreasing. And that entitles us to recover ostensibly 75% of anything over 4 times foundation. So those dollars are also decreasing. We've heard about our health insurance cost. We absorbed about $60,000 of snow removal on our roofs and around our buildings this year. Hopefully that's not going to be a trend that we have to budget for in the near future. The state budget, as we know, is going to be a challenge to balance this year because of the assumptions that they made around revenue as well as expenditures. And so that is going to be a problem. The other issue that is driving our budget is we are getting very needy students at a very young age that present us with challenges, and we educate everyone. That is our mission, and it is something that we value, and we will continue to give every student the opportunities as best as we can. So that was titled under bad news. The good news doesn't have quite as many bullets, but there is some good news there. FEMA, now that they're back in business, is supposed to reimburse us at 75% of all of our snow costs from January 24th through February 26th. So that's a good thing. And we should receive that money. We should expect that money before the end of the fiscal year. So that will help us. Our transportation contract ends this at the end of the school year, so we're in the process of rebidding that out with specifications to try and find efficiencies in how we transport our students. We only have a 2-tier, not a 3-tier system currently. That saves mileage. We also have the need for some late buses. We don't have those. And so also our enrollment is declining. So we have fewer students to transport. So all of those factors are in our favor as we go out to spend this next bus bid. We think that we have opportunities within special education to keep students in the district, thereby saving on transportation as well as tuitions. Those are governed by state and federal law, the requirements based around the child's ed plan. And so that is far more challenging for us to control. But by creating programs and spending money within the district to actually be able to save tremendous money by not sending folks out. We are currently still having some favorable experiences with our FY14 encumbrances, and we hope that we have some more money available at the end of the year to flow into our E&D account. E&D is allowed to be as high as 1% of the operating budget. Currently, we have $720,000 in E&D. That's after the school committee voted to return $116,000 to Blackstone and $45,000 to Elmer. So we anticipate increases, and then if the account gets somewhere around $900,000, then we will use $400,000 to offset our budget and leave us with really about the minimum that we would ever want to be in. It will impact our future borrowing. So we want to keep that account in that 3 to 4% range. We'll hear later on from Mr. Gonzalez that we have a lot of technology needs, both to compete as well as to prepare for the future. And it's very exciting, also very expensive, but there becomes a time when is the right time to do it, and the cost-benefit analysis, as you will hear, really are things that we have to now start to plan for. The committee has charged myself and Dr. Thompson with looking at a other options. We lose about 15% of our students to other choices. And that's part of the beauty of education today, is that families and students have lots of options. But we want, and we are proud of what we have and what we offer now. We just have to maintain, to attract and retain all students and give them the very best opportunities. And we are getting funded from all sides. Norfolk Agricultural obviously is making a big push to recruit students to fill a new building. St. Charles is adding 6th grade next year, so there are more and more options for our students. And we have to decide as an educational community if we want to keep them, keep us competitive, so that students can make a choice to stay if they want in a pretty darn school district. So, as you can see, we do have plans to execute improvements around our instructional and curriculum materials. When we did our budget, it was a needs-based budget, and I asked everybody on the leadership team and staff and even students what we needed. It was not pie in the sky. It was not nice to have. What we need. It's what we need, not what we can afford. What we need. That was a $23 million, $74,000 needs-based budget. That was 8.2%. Towns, it doesn't matter where they're located or what they have for resources, will not be able to take it. So we are postponing some of our needs to the future, and hopefully we can be creative with how we fund them. But the budget that was adopted by the school committee, the March 12th adoption, was $22,366,000. That represents a 4.9% increase. That's a lot of money. Whether you're a taxpayer, whether you're on the finance committee, whether you're elected to the board of selectmen, in charge of managing all of those boards, that's a lot of money. It's not something that we take lightly upon asking for, but I think I would not be doing my job. I would not be doing my job if I did not point out to both communities and to all of our students, staff, and residents what the needs of the district are. And at what level we can fund them is certainly up for discussion and up for debate. As you can see on the very next,
If you have questions at this point, anytime, just kind of start talking, and then we can move forward with some of the other things. If anyone has questions or comments, please.
keep going.
I know you can go further out. I try to pause it a little bit so we can get you guys to start with your thoughts and so forth.
I just put the look at me. I am Jim Watson. I'm the vice chairman of the Blackstone Finance Committee. And since I got here, I've done a few little numbers, okay, to translate. And I'm going with the community contributions this week, which indicates a $519,100 increase in Blackstone's contribution. Having been the former tax assessor, at the current year, if we use, that would work out to an increase of 63 cents on the tax rate. Okay. For a $300,000 house, that's $189. For a $400,000 house, $252. And for a $500,000 house, $250. Obviously, that's going to change a little bit because next year's tax rate is not this year's tax rate, so it would be different. I first did it for the $694,000, which ended up with much higher figures, but I caught on to that. I did. That is the 519,000. I'll have to go and try to run some numbers. I'm not sure that fits into the 2.5 cap that we have and how we end up spreading the numbers around. My question, you've got a minimum contribution and exclusionary costs. Okay. Am I correct in thinking that those two, when it comes up at budget time, the mandatory minimum that we have to provide the school district?
The minimum and the exclusionary costs are have to
combined together is essentially what
it's always been. Yeah.
That's the way that goes. Okay. My personal question is that the student enrollment figures that you give, the latest I've seen is as of last October, which is the number that is used for splitting up the bill between Blackstone and Millville. What do you actually project change to be in the student enrollments for this year?
Yeah, but I believe last year, Jim, it was 1,771, which was the total, and then we had school choice on that, so that was split between about 1,200 and 500 between the towns. We have seen a 12% drop over the last 3 years. So we were just over 2,000, then we dropped 1,800, 1,849, and then this past year, 1,771. I haven't seen anything to show that we're going to hold steady. Everything that I have seen, based upon numbers of students applying other places, requests for applications, is that number may drop again. And I don't know how much it will drop, but we have been dropping anywhere between 40 and 80 students per year for the last several years.
Okay. I have done work in budgeting, profit planning, and control, and that would seem to be the basic number that you would have to come up with for a firm number in order to do all your other plannings. Okay, you don't know how much you're going to spend on special ed transportation until you come up with a number for how many special education students you have. So that brings me a little bit, but it's down by 40 to 80 is what you think.
But we do have an estimated number of special education going off of our preschool program and what we have now, correct?
Yeah, I think Jim's question was in terms of total enrollment. We know that that's declining. We don't know exactly how far down. Part of the problem that districts are faced with around special education is that students can move in after July 1st, and we have found that those are the students that are not choosing other options at the same rate as other students. So we have a more expensive population to educate, and in many times that occurs mid-year or throughout the year, which is requiring us to reallocate resources as we go through the year. We were faced with that just this past September, where we had so many new students with particular needs that we had to hire another teacher. And that is after the budget set, and that's after. So we don't have any opportunities to change that. We have to meet those requirements. So that's, there are so many moving parts that makes it very difficult to target. We plan for what we know, but we never seem to get favorable results through the year. We always have the opposite happen.
I haven't looked. I realize that you've changed the number of additional people that you're hiring. Okay, reduced it. But it seems a little strange that you're increasing the number of teachers at the same time the student enrollments are going down.
We're not going to do that. So what we have done is taken all of the new hires that we had looked at as necessary, and those have been postponed for further time to consider. The only new staff that we're looking at is to support our neediest students, and that we hope and we think that by investing in those two positions that will pay us dividends throughout the year. By being those students in the district and or bringing some students back to the district.
I didn't. That change in the teacher count. I've had maybe 15 minutes of looking at
and it is confusing because we had initially asked for some positions that were cut in previous years that we desperately need to restore.
But also the positions at the high school, we're working on a grant. We were working with the MIMSI grant, which is the social science teacher. So those positions, we were working on a grant to fund those positions. It was the social emotional, right, that one. But the social emotional is the top priority at the elementary level, definitely a need.
So otherwise, those students will be going out the door and at a much higher cost. So in terms of our planning, our 3-year planning, if we can build those services within the district, we save on tuition going out the door and transportation going out the door, which is a very large number right now. So those are kind of, for this committee, those are have-tos that we have to try so we can spend a little targeted investment to get some big dividends back. And, one of the other factors that we're looking at is, it's such a large number of transportation. Is there a way we can go out and buy a vehicle and hire a person to drive it for some of these special ed, again, to save? And we're not talking about saving a couple $1,000s. It's 6 figures that we'll be looking to save. So, again, this committee is going to be looking at that. The other point that I wanted to kind of reiterate is, out of those 40 to 80 that are leaving, okay, just this year right now, there's 15 people at Aggie. And none of them will graduate next year.
At the cost of how much per
$24,000 each, plus transportation. Now, there's already 17 applications there, and they're trying to fill a building in this belt. Okay? So right now for the town of Millville, if everyone gets admitted next year, at 7 right now applications in Millville, and you have 4 there now, that's $264,000 next year you got to pay. You don't have a choice. And the same for Blackstone. It's a much higher figure in Blackstone. So I know you know that, but we have to start thinking about how do we invest in our school, not last, okay? But how do we edge up on the priority list so that we can stop the bleeding of students leaving? Because for us, either way, you're paying, whether they're going to Aggie or somewhere else. You have to invest. We can't keep getting cut every year.
We can't remain stagnant. I think we need to keep moving forward, and it has to be baby steps, which we understand. But at the technology that we have now, and whether you look at Millville or you look at the high school, the technology is not where it needs to be in where we are today in the world. So I think we need to prioritize, which we've done, and just reach out, because that's what's going to get us to that next level and get those kids staying here.
And adding a science teacher in EP classes. Take a look at our science labs. That's awesome. They were renovated. Wait a minute, they were never renovated. It's 45 years old. But again, how do we plan for that when last year we cut $750,000 and this year we're already cutting $700,000 already without any additional contribution?
We spend a full lot of time when we get together on the site. This we need and everything else. Last year, as a percentage, the school budget for the town of Millville was 75% The budget being proposed right now, it's at 60.17%. And that is just using the Norfolk Aggie numbers and the Tri-County numbers is even, because we haven't gotten those back yet. So I just used even from last year. So
You're talking about education for the town.
total.
That's not all of us.
Well, I have to look at it that way.
You can look at the total town of education, but for us, you got to carve our piece out and what that increase is for us, because that's all we can control. We can't control Aggie or Tri-County or BVT.
Yours is the biggest piece of the.
Of course, it's always going to be. It's always going to be.
And I'm not arguing with this.
I know.
But we can't sustain these increases year after year. We mentioned a smoothing curve when we talked the last time. Yeah, but you put it up higher than it went. And we've got to find a way. I understand there's a need for investment, but there's got to be a way to do this over a longer period of time than trying to get well in 1 year.
Listen, we're not looking to try to get well in 1 year, okay? Because the last 6 or 7 years, the E&D, it's been like $4.5 million that we've and we'll do that all the time. But we can't. The thing, you heard me say this last year, and I don't want to reiterate it, but the communities can't just go by giving the minimum. We'll never survive that way.
Our revenue increase went up $143,000 last year. And you guys are asking for almost $286,000 additional. It's not there. You know, my taxes went up on my house 7.5% last year. So where's all that money going? This isn't 7.5%. How did the understand how your taxes go up 7.5%? Millville had the highest increase in taxes of any town in Massachusetts last year.
Who's the override?
We've got trash pickup. The library's been reaccredited. The senior center's opening it. We need to invest in the schools. Of all the things that have gone for before for an override, 3 out of the 4 are being funded. The 4th one is the schools. All of our kids.
What I was just going to say to Rich, you just pointed out 55% last year, 60% this year. Instead of looking at it as that's how much you're putting into education, I think we should, and I know these numbers were out there last year, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but if you look at the population of kids and think of it that way, that 60% of the town's budget is going towards the kids that live in Millville. That's what you're supporting with 60% of your budget. And I know these numbers were out there last year. We looked at them because people were saying education is pushing the senior citizens out, and the population of kids is A, what it's taken care of, and B, it's a much bigger number than. I mean, I'll be glad to do the research to get that number again. But when we pulled it from the census last year, it was much bigger than what anyone was calculating. So, unfortunately, they're not the taxpayers; it's the families that are. But we have to take care of them, and it's all going to them. It isn't going to anything except education. So it's hard to do, but we have to take care of them. It is what it is. 55% last year, 60% this year. It's all for the kids. So I mean, I would just like someone else to look at it differently than the school budget is taking up this much of our town budget. It's 60% of the town of Millville. 60% of the town budget of Millville is kids.
It always has been the largest part of every town. Oh, I understand. But not you, Rich, but other people come and act like it's a big surprise. The school's taking all the money. School's taking all the money. When you were in school, when I was in school, Mr. Watson, when you were in school, I guarantee you the schools were the biggest part of the budget of whatever towns we were all raised in. And they always have been.
Because we're the largest service provider.
We're the largest service provider with the people who need the services the most. Right. You mentioned the senior center and the library. Right. The senior center, the budget is $40,000. And the library, the budget is $28,000. I understand. They're not easy. They're not right. You can't compare them. No, but we go back and look at a percentage of increases. The average increase from FY06 to FY15, 1.6%. Well below the threshold of 2.5% proposition. So somebody's getting the money. The money's going somewhere. I'm not saying here. Brian has got a copy of it. There's not much out there. No, I know. I'm not saying Millville's flush with cash. I would like to know what Blackstone Stabilization Fund is at right now.
$3 million. Yeah, but you know what it is.
In a budget of 20. So you have $3 million in your rainy day fund. We have $700,000. When you talk about the increases here, you're talking about raise and appropriate from your tax base. You have $3 million sitting there. If I was a taxpayer, I wouldn't be mad at the school district. I'd be mad at the people who are holding on to $3 million.
How is this 270?
Maybe less than
270, 250. So yours is higher than ours, I think.
I just wanted to say that, we have finance committees representing at the boards, and your jobs are difficult because you have the same issues that we have, that the state has. You have such a limited availability to raise revenue, and you've got so many pieces of the pie. The two things that, for me, struck me as important, based upon what I walked into July 1st last year, were two things. One is our school budget. When I went back and looked at the general fund budget, as Brian mentioned, over the last 10 years, in 2007 it went down 0.4%. We had two huge years in 8 and 9 where we increased 5.1 and 3.8, but then we went down 1.2 in 10, in FY11 down 1.0, in 12 down 0.4. Then we had two modest increases in 13 and 14, and then we dropped again this year. The problem is that school budgets need to have some modest increase every single year, and that the school budgets need to be set as early in May as possible. And the reason for that is by Mass General Law, if I don't know what my budget is, I have to lay off or non-renew staff. And what that does is it forces folks to make difficult decisions. Do I think I can get a job and stay where I love and want to be, or do I take the sure thing in another district? Therefore, we end up spending the summer retrenching, reposting, interviewing, rehiring, and we start over training new people. And that's the piece that you can't put a price tag on. The loyalty that you gain by training solid professionals to grow with the district. And for the last couple of years, we have been faced with that particular challenge, and it plays out exactly in our special ed costs. We cut a guidance counselor, we cut teachers, we cut who we needed to take care of. And so what happens is those very students who are needy and have tremendous needs to begin with, we can't get the right people in front of them year after year, and we lose tremendously talented people to other districts. And those that stay, we are burning out just as quickly as we can, because we are forcing them to do more with a lot less. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, you folks know this exactly. The problem is one of being able to sustain revenue growth, and that's the sole issue that towns are facing. And we have limited resources in our two towns. And believe me, I know that. All I wanted to do is let everyone know where we are. And if we continue to have to regroup and retrench and rehire every year, it puts us further behind. And what happens is we endeavor larger and larger costs to educate our neediest students, because they don't go to Norfolk Aggie, and they don't go to Mount St. Charles, and they don't school choice to play football at Northbridge. They stay with us, and that's the crux of our dilemma.
And the other, Atlantic I know last year was a long process. I hope it's not a long process this year, but I hope you guys know I respect every single one of you, because you're never afraid to speak your mind, Mr. Watson. I respect that a lot. Honest to God, sometimes we don't agree, and that's okay. But every single one of you take on this task of being active in your towns. The same with everybody on this board. I don't know what the answer is, Joe. I didn't know what the answer was last year, except we need more.
I need to say a couple of things.
Yeah, but the other thing is, if we could come up with a way where each town can commit to giving beyond the minimum each year, whatever that percentage is, if we can figure that out and commit to it for the next 5 years, then that's the beginning point, Rich. And I don't know how else to do that, though.
You know, peg it like, okay, minimum plus 1.5%.
But it's got to be.
You can forecast that out.
It can't be like this.
Right.
It's got to be like that.
Yeah, but you have it right here. If we had just gotten a 1.75 increase each year, we would be ahead of the game right now in terms of what we're looking at. But we go up and down. And listen, we're committed to putting as much as we can for E&D every single year. Let it be a three-legged stool here.
Let me say this about that. Millville is actually supporting the school district on an increasing basis in that 10 years ago, Millville's contribution to the total budget, the assessment to the total budget was close to 9%. This year it's 12.2%. In that 10-year period, the increases have approached approximately $1 million.
10 years.
In 10 years.
Don't make me get on my calculator and do math right now.
I've got them here.
No, I'm kidding. But Joe, it's still not enough.
I know it's not.
That also has to do with your target share and what the state makes fluctuates with your.
I respect what all you're doing.
I know.
But my bad news story is Mr. Himmelberger says we've got a real revenue problem. Mr. Gravello started the budget season by asking for a zero-based budget process. So you got to do a job. What do you need to do that job? And the first result, when that all got put together, the town was had a $605,000 deficit. There were a couple of iterations after that, and it got kind of whittled down to about $315,000. In addition to that, there are a number of issues going on in town in that we presently have a $152,000 snow and ice deficit. And I understand we're going to have maybe some wintry weather over the weekend.
All right, take care of that. Think positive. Take care of it.
We have a tremendous amount of infrastructure issues, roads, and buildings that need to be addressed.
I wasn't complaining about my tax rate, by the way, because I'll tell you something. Millville has been undertaxing forever. Almost 100 years they've been undertaxing. And if you compare the tax rate in Millville to the tax rate in Blackstone, there's a big gap there. That's why there's $3 million sitting over here in stabilization, and there's not that much. If you raise your hand, just yell.
One of the reasons that we have an amount of money in the stabilization fund is that we also have debts. We have $7.7 million in an unfunded liability for the town's pension fund. We're not going to know what we owe on OPEB until the actuary shows up on the 14th. From what I've heard, and it would be good if this board would come up with some hard numbers for the public to know what the school district's unfunded liability is on their pension fund and on their OPEB post-employment health benefits are. And for the gentleman from Millville, I think our $3.1 million is going to pale.
Well, $3.1 million against your budget is almost 14% of your budget. The amount of money we have in our E&D, which we wanted to call stabilization, but that never happened, is 3.18% of our budget. And in Millville's is much less than that.
I realize that, and we are increasing the town's budget. The reason we have it is we have been pinch penny for a great many years on the town's budget.
But you're sitting on $3 million of taxpayers' money, and you're talking about this increase going right to the taxpayers. I don't think that's fair. If I was a Blackstone taxpayer, I'd be having other discussions with the FinCom and having that expressed.
When you come back and you tell me what your unfunded liabilities are, because 71% of that unfunded liability is going to come down on the town of Blackstone because there is nobody else to pay it over the next 20 years. I realize it's not the town of Blackstone's legal liability, but the question is, what is the number? And I don't say that I'm opposing all the increases in education, because I'm not.
I said that. I go we're saying. No,
I'm talking about passing on this to the taxpayers.
That's never our intention. So whatever we're asking about free cash and stabilization in Blackstone.
I just want to run another number out here that I was just doing some math.
So we got to get some Powerball tickets from.
I mean, the numbers all look huge on paper and when you're computing everything, but if you take the additional contribution we're looking for from both towns and divide it by the number of students by 180 days, it is $2.26 a day that we need. And that is less than I send my kids to school with for lunch. So, I mean, but that number is what we need in additional contribution.
Put
to get to this
$2 and something cents together
to the 1,700 kids.
It comes up to a number of times that can't afford. And I haven't questioned one expense, and you've given us everything. And I'm really not planning on it because I know you did a thorough job trying to do it. It's just trying for us to come up with a way to make that work for you. And that's the challenge right now.
And I think if we can put our heads together and come up with what's the percentage and commit to it, I don't care if they're in a contract for 5 years or whatever, I don't know if that's illegal. But the gentleman, that's the way the mindset has to be. And I know you know this, Rich. It's the only way to do it because to come back with a minimum, okay, and for the governor to say, oh, we're going to cut this percentage, but then don't fund all these other things, and tell us that you have to do these 108 mandates that we have to do now. We're in the middle, and I know, and you know what, we have to be together and going after the state. Again, I'm going at the end of April. If anyone wants to get a bus with me, you're really welcome. But, I don't think that they're looking at the formula. They'll change the formula, but if you think there's going to be new dollars coming, it's going to be a shell game, as usual. I'm hoping, right now, the technology that we have, some of our smartphones are better than some of the technology that we have in the district, okay?
And that's a safety concern. Because we can't be having teachers using cell phones. We can't physically be doing that. And I think that if we look at it as a safety concern, it's huge.
And I think much like the boards before us, representatives, the state knows that foundation budget is outdated. The technology component of the foundation budget is $35 per student. That was set in 1993. That doesn't even buy us
the data
toner today. And so we all know that's, as Bill said, the whole structure needs to be reassessed. But the two things that for me are most important in terms of how we build the district to be able to find efficiencies around special education, around transportation, is to know that we get the budget set as early in May as we can, and to know that we can expect some modest increase that we'll hopefully be able to reduce. But I know that's a huge leap in 1 year. But if we can't get to that level, then we're going to have to put the rest of our instructional materials and textbooks that we desperately need on hold for another year. We're going to have to lay off and increase our class sizes and lay off staff. We're going to have to find ways to continue to ask more of everyone in it. And I see what has happened this year, and it's just eroding slowly, but it's eroding. And if we can't find a way to get minimal increases and get those numbers early, and I'm not saying for each and every year, but at some point we've got to take a stand and say this year we've got to give something. And I understand that both towns' revenue structures and certainly, empathize with the infrastructure needs in Millville, but we've just got to find a way somehow at one point to help stabilize the school budget.
The Chapter 70 formulas, certainly don't make the try, but it really comes down to population of students.
That's definitely it's a multi.
Part of it, but it's also the number of students that apply for free and reduced lunch.
Right.
It's the number of students that are in special ed. So there's lots of. It's not just sheer numbers.
I'm just trying to see what is a natural growth and appetite to populations in the towns. Right now, we're seeing a downward swing on Blackstone, at least. That's one we really can't control. The one we can control is like what you were talking about earlier, is the ones who are choicing out. And the only way we can do that is to ensure we have enough investment in the school to make people want to come here.
Just be one of the choices.
Right? And then hopefully the town's population, based on the school system, that's how it will continue to grow. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in Millville. I moved here 22 years ago and I stayed here because of the school system. Obviously, that's a big part of how successful a town is. I really agree with that.
And you bring up the paper. I can name 10 schools off the top of my head right now that have this $600 to $1 million gap that they just don't know how to figure out. They try overrides, they try, all those things. And, I went back after Alan did his formula, and if we had just gotten the 1% or 1.5% increase or 0.75 increase, and just had the minimum every single year from the state and from both towns, there's still a $1.2 million gap every single year. And how do we get around this? And how do other towns get around it? And they contribute beyond the minimum. And again, I don't know how we start doing that, but we have to kind of figure that piece out.
And just one more thing, I wanted to not be always gloom and doom, which sometimes it seems like my message is lately, but I want everyone to know that we have a lot of good things happening in this district. And Joe knows because he and I cross paths following the band, and we have students that, last year one of our students is at Harvard, and this year we've got students going to some pretty terrific schools. We offer a lot. We have, I got to teach second grade, Mrs. Cody and Mrs. Roussel got it on camera, and you want to try teaching second grade for a whole day. But we have a lot of great families that support their children's education. We have got a lot to be proud of. I just see us slipping. And once you slip, it takes that much more to regain your balance. And you'll hear from Mr. Gonzalez and Dr. Thompson in a little bit about the things that are exciting that we can do to keep pace. And we're going to tap into some other revenue streams to help us. But we're at that, and I know it sounds cliche, but we're getting to that tipping point where if we don't stabilize the revenue, we know we're going to be faced with some real critical issues, just like the towns are. So, we'll continue to work and continue to refine our spending. Mr. Watson, I'm going to work on the OPEB. I have that as a mission anyway, so we'll get that and hash that out so we can share that with the towns.
And just to let you know where we're at, we're rehashing how we're going to do $700,000 from the get-go, and then a contingency if we don't get what we need from the towns for the next round. I know we're coming to the 13th, I think of April 13th, I think we're on the agenda. I think BOS with a week before on the 7th, and a week have been, we've been a couple of years.
Where we are right now is we've got all our input for most part, there's still a couple of them that are really out of our control in Tri-County and Norfolk. But we're at a point where we're going to start putting together trial budgets to see what works. And I think at this point we need to continue our dialogue together. Please, when you see the first few budgets that come out, that we don't get, because they're just first cuts at this thing. That's a very...
I have to say that I appreciate you coming out, because I know we sent an invitation to everyone. And I know as a Blackstone taxpayer, I appreciate you coming out and asking questions and asking those hard questions. I wish we had more, but, just coming out shows that you're invested, and I personally appreciate that. I have personally 3 generations in Blackstone. My mom's here, she's a senior, I'm here, I have 3 kids here. We're invested as a family. And I think it's important to see that, because I know Blackstone and Millville have invested families that have grandparents. And the majority of our towns are made up of every age group. And I think it's important to see that, and the developments that are in town. We have one on Elm Street. We have one on Park Street. We want to build those developments. How are you going to build those developments? Well, they're 3-bedroom houses, 2-bedroom houses. There are kids that are going to be in those houses. So where do we want to build that? It starts at the school. The first thing that parents look at is they look at the school. They see, how is the school? What is it like? What's the profile? And in order to build that profile, it has to be invested. And I appreciate you coming out, because obviously you're invested, but I think the message has to be everybody's invested. And I think it has to come from all different aspects. I just think it's really important, and I appreciate you coming out.
The first draft already has the selectmen this past Monday evening. And now with the selectmen have made changes, the selectmen's changes will be presented to FinCom next Wednesday evening. For lack of quorum, last night we had to cancel. So next Wednesday, Mr. Corbella doesn't realize that his numbers aren't even right.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
My numbers are right. Just one last comment, and that is, as our numbers change, we have the Mass Association of Superintendents lobbying the governor's office now to try and change circuit breaker, try and up the ante on regional transportation, relook at the Chapter 70 allocations. And so as we get information on those numbers, we'll pass those back to the finance committees and to the boards to make sure that everyone has it as we hear. So there's still a lot of things in play as we go down the next 3 or 4 weeks. So when do you think the governors will run out fast? The fire sergeant? Well, Ways and Means is due on April 15th. That's the word on the street. That'll be a very clear indicator of anything else that's going to happen. And then after it goes from Ways and Means to Senate, and then joint probably end of May. And we'll see. It's going to be a real interesting process at the state level. Real interesting. But I know House Ways and Means is targeted for April 15th.
With the 9C cuts and everything else, the 15 budget, you're going to be able to make it through the...
We are reallocating. The 9C cuts didn't hit us real hard, but at the level we're at, every bit is critical. So we were able to plan for it. We're constantly rebalancing and holding off. I've told the leadership team that nothing happens until mid-April, because we've paid our big utility bills and our special ed costs become fixed as of April 1 with incoming, so that we now know what we have left for fourth quarter, and then we're going to have to come to the committee over the next
year.
Again, the seven right now.
The 7 next year from Millville. Right. The 7 from Millville, 9 from Blackstone in terms of applications right now.
And those would add into, so you'd be up close to 20 in Blackstone. And probably the 3 plus the 7, somewhere around 10.
That would
it's 275, 275,000.
There again, that's a great example of how the state has not thought through how to fund education. As they've added the layers in of different components, they haven't given us the tools to manage them financially. And that's unfortunate because, again, it rolls back down the hill and lands at the foot of local boards to try and solve it. So
deadlines on April 1st, they need to get their applications to you. And then the deadline
fast and furious.
July.
I'm not exactly sure, but the deadlines for the applications are April 1st. And everyone's competing, so I'm sure they'll turn around pretty quick. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you guys for sharing. I really appreciate it. We'll see you in a few weeks.
And then just the last item that I have is special ed transportation, to Mr. Watson's point, and to certainly what we are dealing with. As students are placed out of district because we don't have the programming or the staff to meet their needs, special ed transportation is typically not the most efficient way to transport students, but it is a requirement. And so I know that the committee is a little surprised, as am I, that our projected sped transportation is going to be larger than maybe our regular ed transportation. Who knows where that regular ed number goes once we commit it. But we are looking at all options to try and find ways to strategically keep our students here. If that's the least restrictive environment that the law says we have to follow. So it is something that we are working on with extreme diligence, given the timing and given the fact that our numbers this year have ballooned tremendously. So it is certainly an area that is very visible because of the size, but in some cases a challenge to control and or minimize. So it is something that we are looking at in great detail to try and control that as we move forward.
So the 23 on this list you sent us, 23 Tellstone students are in district. And the way these contracts came through to us, these are dated for last April, the 2 that we got. I would like to, I don't know if we have to buy for the promotion, but I would like to see these put out to bid instead of the way they came in as, once again, it's time to send out an extension letter.
Why?
Why? Because we need to find a way to cut costs. And if we're not competitive and we don't put ourselves out there, we're going to keep paying $900,000 for special ed transportation. That's why.
That has to do with numbers. Okay. If you think you're going to get different rates, okay, and again, Dr. High can come in and explain this, but I think, and I'm only going to say this once, if you think we're going to be savvy and look at some contracts and say this needs to go out to bid because we can do it better, we're not going to do it better.
I'm asking for
you can ask for whatever you want, but all I'm saying is for this to come to this committee, okay, to look at contracts, okay,
we
when no one understands this.
Over to these companies.
No, we're handing over to a special ed director who has relationships with these people for the last 10 years.
I think we need to calm down.
We can calm down.
I really think we need to be respectful. Because right now the voices are being raised, and I don't think that's respectful.
That's fine.
I think we need to take a deep breath.
Okay.
I think we all have the same.
I'm going to take one deep breath.
Yes, you are.
And then what I'm going to do is, the last thing I'm going to say on this is that last meeting, I felt it was so disrespectful to ask for contracts. My feeling was, we don't trust our leadership. That we're going to figure something out else. Excuse me, let me just finish.
Don't put your hand up.
Let me finish, and then you can talk.
That's fine, but don't put your hand up.
Okay, let me finish, and then I'll talk. And you can talk, okay? Last meeting, we asked for contracts, okay? And I felt very
I felt so bad for the leadership because the message that I heard was that we don't trust what you do. Okay, you could have easily asked, this number is $900,000. It's big. Can someone come in and just explain this to me? Is it just numbers? But we asked for contracts. Like, we're going to come up with something different. We're going to come up with something savvier than the relationships that have been built by not only Paul, but other people in the district. So that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all I'm going to say about it. And the committee can make whatever decision they want on moving forward with this. But I have to say this. I felt so bad that this committee doesn't trust the leadership that we have in doing this.
But you know what, Bill? It came through with, unfortunately, the answer that we wouldn't have wanted to see. So you can say we didn't trust him. We didn't put it out to bid. We're just handing it over to the companies and paying what their rates are. It should go out to we should get at least 3 bids in, and it should go to the lowest bidder. And the reason it came up last meeting was because it was a $400,000 increase on special ed transportation. We are almost paying the same amount for special ed students' transportation as we are for the 15 buses that roll through our towns every day. And granted, it's exclusionary cost to our town, but it increased their exclusionary cost to us. If they didn't have to carry that weight, maybe they wouldn't be questioning or finding out how to pay our additional contribution.
I just wanted to say that we are looking at all options to reduce our special ed costs. Part of the problem is there aren't that many licensed carriers in our area. That being said, it is always smart to let more than one know that we have these students going to these locations and do the best can we meet their needs. And that's what we're in the process of doing.
The 2 contracts we were sent were dated for April 29th and April 25th of last year. And it basically rolled over what we were doing the prior year, from what I can see, for 1 year. So I think we should put something out to bid at least by mid-April. These companies can bid on it. I'm not saying it's not going to be them, but if we're not making ourselves competitive, how do we know we're actually paying the prices we should be paying? It's only fair to our budget, to our towns. It's only fair.
I just wanted to respond. Georgette and I had a wonderful opportunity to attend a training 2 weekends ago, whenever it was. And one of the things that they made very, very clear to us, and something that wasn't made clear to me when I started almost a year ago, is that as a school committee, we have a fiduciary responsibility. We have to, these things that we sign off on. I asked a question today about why do we have ELL tutors if we have ELL teachers? We have to look at those things. Georgette and I, they'd come by and we would, flip through and, we would sign. We have the responsibility as a committee to look at that financial stuff and to question. And I think that's all Aaron is trying to do. Not question the leadership, not question I have a question. Again, special education is our largest chunk. It is going to be a largest chunk. I personally believe 50 years down the road that public education will be special education. I personally believe that that's the direction we're going unless we see dramatic change, because the money we're spending is focused on special education needs. It's just where the biggest piece of the pie is going. But we have to look at that somehow. If we're hiring educational psychologists in the school, we shouldn't be sending our students out to agencies to get tested. If we're hiring, if we're allowing parents to drive, it shouldn't cost us more for the parent to drive their child than it would for us to put them on a transportation bus. And I believe that the special education director is looking at those things. I believe that the leadership team is looking at those things. But we as a committee also have a responsibility to question.
Can I just ask a quick turn, of course?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so one of the things there, and I think you just alluded to this, is a big differentiation between school committee and administration is school committee says one, administration says no. And that's where the fine line is. And it's easy to cross back and forth between that fine line. It's important for this committee to set the vision, to say this is what we want. It's important for this committee to go deeper into certain areas to question. However, it is the responsibility of the administration and whoever the superintendent, assistant superintendent picked to be on their team to carry out those duties, whatever they are. If it's to do a three-way bid, which I think is 3 to 5 is great, annual or depending on what the contract is, semi-annual activity. But just keep in mind, we set the vision. These guys put into action. Their operations, where the idea folks. So it's tough. It's tough to keep that line as fine as it is, but
I work for you. Policy, operations, but oversight. I chair the school committee, I know. And one of my pledges when I got here, and will continue to be what governs me, is to make sure that we do everything we can to control costs. And certainly we are in the process of reviewing that. And we will certainly be able to report back to the committee soon.
And I think all of us support the A team. I strongly feel all of us support the A team. I think, we just look at budget. And we look at where we can best serve the budget. So if there's a question, I think it doesn't hurt to ask. Just like when an administrator comes in and we ask questions, do you have enough curriculum things? Do you need something else? It's not questioning them. It's just asking, are we doing all we can for them? So I think that's very important to clarify, because I don't think any one of us are questioning them. I think we're just looking at budgetary.
If I can just jump in on this, I think we're confusing a couple. I agree we should look at it, bidding where we can. Again, we have limited resources in this area for transportation. But the costs have gone up. The costs have gone up because we have not had the capacity to build the system in our district to serve these kids. Okay? That is the nut of the problem. Okay? So if we're not servicing the kids in our schools and we are sending them out, that's where the costs have gone up. That's why you see that increase, is because there are kids going out of district because we do not have the program in our district to serve them in-house. And that is unfair to them. We are not doing the best we can, and that's where the costs are coming from. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at transportation costs across the board. Mr. Hillenberger has made that abundantly clear in our meetings. But we need to solve the other problem in order to solve the big one.
Okay.
And that's the end of my report. Thank goodness.
Okay. Report of the Assistant Superintendent.
Oh, got to get another target. All right. There's a memo in your packet. A couple updates. Professional development. We are in the process of looking for district representation on our professional development committee for designing our PD for next year. We're looking for teachers from each building, paras, nurses, counselors, so we can make sure that we design programs during our PD days. And we have our PDs days set for those 3 Fridays. So we'll start doing that later on, probably in April. Already have gotten a huge response, probably about 8 or 10 people. Still looking for, I think, a nurse. I think they're talking about it amongst themselves. Google, we finished our Google training. Well, actually finished or started, I think is a better way. Our Google leaders this past Tuesday and Wednesday. Our 12 Google leaders were there. It was very well done, and I have to give a shout out to our technology guru, Mr. Gonzalez, and his efforts in finding our trainer. Everyone thought that she was the best they'd ever seen, and we are looking to bring her back, hopefully for a day during the summer, to work again with our Google leaders in preparation for PD next year, and as well maybe later on in August for other teachers who want to get kind of a jump start on using Google. The math pilot has begun. I had the privilege of walking around the elementary schools this week and visiting classrooms. The teachers are doing a great job jumping in and using the new math programs. And I'm pleased to report that we are off to a good start with that. Last thing, the administrative team has started a discussion about summer programming, summer reading, and summer math. Once we get some sort of information from other districts and a history of what's been done here, we then are going to include grade level teachers and such and design a summer program. My hope is that we will have that sketched out by the middle to the end of May so that we can give town libraries and also school libraries a chance to have books and such for them. So, that
It's my privilege to once again call up our technology director, Mr. Gutierrez. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back. This is a new suit working on CrossFit, trying to get back. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing me in and having me look at our network and what we need to do to bring us back to the, as I would say, the 21st century and give the best possible solution for our students and also our staff members here. As I like to call it, just a reboot to the next level. So we had initially in the beginning of January, I had with Brad Monroe, who's our consultant, filled out a Form 470. That Form 470 is pretty much an application calling out all vendors within our local area that are specific on our state contract in order to give us a bid on what it would cost to get our network to a viable state. So we had 5 vendors that initially said we want to do business with you possibly. Those companies were ePlus, Total Communications, Acuity. We also had Harbor Networks and also Carousel Industries. All of them came out and had various walkthroughs of all of our buildings. They took a look at all of our network closets, meaning where we have all of the network infrastructure appliances. And they made their assessments. And over more meetings, I pretty much was able to determine which companies would best meet our needs. Acuity bowed out only because they knew they were not able to get us the best possible pricing. ePlus and Total Communications, their recommendations were for us to rip out everything and put Cisco appliances, which is technically the Cadillac or the most expensive type of networking appliances you can purchase, and we weren't going to do that. We went with Harbor Networks and also Carousel Industries as far as working on what we currently have and what can we add to it in order to not be a total hindrance to the district as far as dollars and cents. So after several walkthroughs, we did what's called the heat map. I want to put that up on the screen not only for the audience. Do you have that in your package?
We have.
Okay, great. So, just to give you a sense, the heat maps that you're about to see, they're just a physical representation of what the wireless saturation is going to look like when you have a wireless access point within a particular room. And the red means a high concentration of wireless signal. The yellow means that now the signal is beginning to dissipate. And so we wanted to make sure that all of our classes have a high concentration. Currently, as we have right now, I'm going to show you a before and after photo of each building or each section of a building, so you get a sense of what it looks like now and what it will look like after the project is done. This is the first floor of BM of the high school. This is an older picture. I wasn't able to get the type of heat maps of what we currently have in there, and I apologize. Trust me when I say that we do not have full coverage in the building. We have spotty coverage. We have what we would call dead spots. But after the walkthrough, this is what our first floor would look like, where in every classroom, in also the gym and the auditorium, there would be a high concentration of wireless signal. So this way, our students would be able to do their type of assessments, resource gathering within the classrooms without having to go to these outdated computer labs that we have in the building, which is also very good in the sense that in the auditorium, if we decide to have bigger events, family members taking pictures, posting it up on Facebook, so on and so forth, or school committee meetings, or big events that would require a higher audience, will have access to our wireless public network. Second floor, again, I apologize, I wasn't able to get the graphics here for that heat map in time. And this is what the second floor would look like also. Again, another set of before and afters, high concentration. We would also be putting in an access point in the guidance office for our vendors, parents, other guests that we have for the administration. Also in the main building, the main admin of the high school. Again, every classroom and the upper side of the auditorium would have an access point. Each access point can have up to 30 connections. And we would be pumping out a connection at a bandwidth of 10 gigs as opposed to in the high school we are currently pushing it out to 1 gig. So that would also mean that the current network appliances would be upgraded to the latest generation of appliances so that not only would we be able to have enough bandwidth for the wireless, enough bandwidth for our current connected computers via an Ethernet cable, but also other particular appliances like voice over IP phone systems. Our phone systems are archaic and need to be updated, but that's not something that we're planning on this year. That would be the second phase of our approach, and other different things that we would need reliance on the network in order to make sure that we don't have a bottleneck at the high school. That's without having any previous heat maps. Are you suggesting that the increase will be about 10-fold over where we are now? Or will it be 100-fold? So right now, if we were to put every student with a Chromebook and have them go into the classroom and try to do, let's say, assessments, or it would be a very frustrating day. Put it that way. That's not to say that every classroom in a real-world environment will have that. But as Mr. Himmelberger was saying, technology is becoming more and more increasingly brought into the classroom. Very few teachers nowadays are writing on the blackboard. Very few students are going to the library and picking up a book. They're picking up an e-reader or a laptop or right from this phone and doing the type of resource gathering that is needed for their curriculum. Any other questions so far? So this is our current complex. This is AFM and JFK together. The green dots that you see, if you can see them on the screen, I apologize for those in the audience if you can't see it. The green dots are where we currently have access points. As you can see, they're not really within a particular, they're not in every classroom, they're scattered. All right. Considering that you also have very old buildings, concrete, the coverage there is spotty, but then again, we're talking about elementary schools that elementary students who may not have the need to have a wireless device in their hand every minute of every day. Or so we think, because as you know, more and more devices are coming in. If we're going to move forward with a BYOD initiative or a one-to-one initiative that we're providing these devices to the students, we will need coverage in every classroom, hands down. So this is what it currently looks like. This is what the new proposal will have us looking like by the end of the summer in the complex. Every classroom, the auditorium, the cafeteria, even the gym will have coverage. So every particular student, every staff member, visitor that comes through the complex will have access to Wi-Fi without any hindrance, without any issues, without being a bottleneck situation. Millville Elementary. Currently it is, as far as a network infrastructure in the building, that is our worst of the bunch. We are currently running at 100 megs, and we have some APs or access points throughout the building. If we were to try to put a voice over IP phone system in that building, it would not work. It would not work. You would not be able to have consistent phone quality coming into that building with the amount of bandwidth coming in. That's not to say that can't change because that's why I'm here.
Is that in the technology plan? So far,
that's long term.
So when you look at long-term improvements, that's a huge savings in costs from traditional networks.
But you can't put in voice over IP without the network infrastructure being in place. So
you're saving more money so someone can use it.
So the idea is, we're doing this in a phase. We didn't want to shock everyone and try to sell you on getting all of this done at once because number one, I would have no life. I'd be here till 11 o'clock at night every day. But number two, it's a financial responsibility that at this moment probably not the best to take on. So we're doing this in steps so that when everything is done, part one is done excellently. Part two, moving forward, will be done excellently, that the school committee and the residents, the students will be able to say, we did this the right way. So this is Millville. This is the second floor of Millville. It is much more than the first floor, but still very scattered as far as the APs. And then now, moving forward, all of our classrooms would have access to Wi-Fi. There is one particular classroom, the bottom right-hand corner, that is currently being used as storage. The way I see it, populations, they will increase. So I would rather plan and put them in spots where they're at this current moment not being used, knowing that in the future those rooms will be utilized. All right, so this is our middle school. The first floor academic, this is downstairs, the first floor. Green dots, the access points are not in the classrooms, they are actually in the hallways. So when I went with my little laptop trying to get signal, if you go into the hallways, you get fine, good signal. You go to the far end of a room, and the signal isn't as strong, only because you have concrete slabs, cinder blocks. And so, in order for us to make sure that our students are always connected via a wireless device, we needed to go ahead and put them in the academic rooms. So we're looking at now every particular classroom having an access point. I think that's the best solution for this particular model, as opposed to currently putting them in just need basis areas such as hallways closest. We want to make sure that every classroom has an access point. Some areas, as you can see in this particular JPEG, two areas that are not. One area is maybe it's a special ed break room, a room that's an ed room. Not sure what the whole function or purpose of that room is. Then there's our combination bathrooms, network closet. We don't need an access point in that area. This is our main area here on the second floor, where again you'll see the access points in the hallways with the exception of one in the computer lab. Again, really we need to make sure that all of the classrooms have the access points so that our students would have access to wireless when they need to access them. And here again, just another representation of what that would look like. And the same for the third floor of the academic wing. The access points are in the hallways, not in the classrooms. What we would like to do is move them over into the classroom. So now every classroom in the academic wing here in the middle school will have an access point so that when we are called on for park testing and we are ready to do the testing, we don't have to have the teachers or the principals trying to schedule the computer labs. But then at that point, what we need to make sure we have are the devices in their hands so that they can do the testing in the classrooms if need be. Alright, so here, this particular JPEG is the cafeteria music area. Currently, we have an access point, one in the cafetorium. We also have one in a computer lab. With our current model, we would move to have one in the band area. We would have two in the cafeteria. If you guys remember, maybe a week or so ago, Kurt Schilling came over, which I wasn't invited, and I'm still upset at that. But anyway, so we had that cafeteria.
We weren't invited either.
Oh, okay. I don't feel bad. Okay. So that cafeteria was pretty packed. Imagine if there was a school play. Imagine if there is any type of event where lots of parents of the communities are going to come and be there. Even then, we would want to make sure that we have access for those parents with our wireless guest network. And I want to make sure I stress guest.
They get close with Jesse because he's usually got his camera going somewhere to find out where he's going.
Okay.
That's where all the action is.
Just down the road.
So there is some tweaking. This is not the final placement of all the access points, but this is just a rough representation of what the before and after would look like. This is our main area here, including the library, the gym, the admin area. We have one access point in the gym, we have one in the admin area, and we have one here in the library. If we continue with the plan that I propose, we would now have two access points in the gym. We would have one access point in the nurses area, also one in the admin area. We would have four here in the library. So now we would be able to make sure that this particular room is totally covered. So in the event that we had a big gathering here also, up to 200 students, 200 people would have access to the Wi-Fi. So once the project is completed, the idea is that every building has a network infrastructure of 10 gigabit bandwidth. So that would again allow us to do all of the different things, all of the different assessments, resource gathering, the students having to do their networking, their homework assignments, the teachers needing to pull in resources from other sites, databases, so on and so forth. There would be a lot better traffic as far as us being to send data from one school to another. If we needed to send a huge file, folders, databases, it's endless. I think we would be right up there as far as the network capacity of, let's say, Blackstone Valley Tech or Mount St. Charles. Name your school. Right now, 10 gigabit bandwidth network infrastructure is the industry standard. Anything above that, now you're talking high end, and we don't need that. I think also with that, we will be building in scalability and also have enough growth for future endeavors. If we needed to add more switches, if we needed to add more network drops, let's say, for whatever reason, there's a need to put not only more appliances, but we need to have more computer hard drive computers in our classrooms, whatever the case may be. We're building for the future. We're building so that in the future, when we need to build out, we don't have to spend any more money because the capacity is already there built in. And we, as I said, we went from 5 companies down to 2, Harbor Networks and also Carousel Industries. So the leadership team and myself have been talking about that, and I think we are in good shape to have a decision made, move forward with the funding, and go from there if you have any questions.
Can you just correlate the timeline of implementation or probably the cost?
Okay. The total cost would be about $274,032.14. Roughly. But that being said, the federal government has a program called E-Rate. I'm sure you guys are aware of what that means. It's their way of subsidizing a certain percentage of your internet or network infrastructure for any type of initiatives that work around technology, phone systems, and so on and so forth. Our current rate of subsidy is 50%. So that means that $274,032.14 would be cut in half. So we would be responsible for our local share of $137,016.07 roughly. We are currently working on spreading that out over a 3-year plan. So we're not looking to do that all at once. Our yearly I'm sorry. What? Let me. I'm sorry. Let me finish
Your plan for funding, not for your plan for demonstration.
So it would roughly come out to be about 47,000 plus a year, depending on, we have the option to either pay our local share yearly, lease to own program, different scenarios that we're looking at. The way that we would go about it, speaking with the vendors, we're confident that we can receive this product in time. So meaning if we start at the end of June, that they would be able to finish before September. We're confident. Now, there may be hiccups along the way, but for the most part, we don't see this being dragged out for a year. If anything, this whole process, this project would be done, I'd give it 4, maybe 5 months total. That's just pushing out in the event that we do have some issues along the way. But I don't see this taking that much long. And the conversations I've been having with them would be to start at Millville and also at our high school. And then once those 2 buildings are done, then they would come to the middle school and also here to the complex.
That's great news. That's terrific. Did both suppliers help you do the thermal imaging?
Yes.
They can see a difference between the two. It looks like one used thermal imaging and one used Doppler radar. I think that should sway your opinion and the quality of the work. It's a good representation. Questions or comments? I think it's great.
Great.
So really by Halloween, okay, or sooner, if the green light is gone, we're going to be at 100% in terms of our fixed wireless and computer output.
Yes, I believe that.
That's great.
Can't say enough about the job.
Yeah.
As all this is done, to talk with all of these tech companies and the ability for him to phrase it in words that I can understand is amazing. But I believe that this will put us in great shape. The new cyber system he hasn't stayed till 11, but he's been here until 10. He's done that.
Did you a 10-year contract with him?
He's just signing a new one.
Yeah, I mean, when Mr. Gonzalez came in, one of the things I asked him to do was to look at our network because I knew that we had to build the backbone for the future. I'm going to have him negotiate all of my long-term contracts, buy houses. He is a master, and he pits one against the other, and he's done a tremendous job in getting down exactly what we need that's cost-effective, best possible price. And by watching him, I've learned a lot. So I want to thank him for all of his efforts. This is an opportunity that we can't pass up. This E-rate is not going to be around forever at this rate. We need to build our backbone so that we can, the future is blended learning. The future is people using devices in the classroom. I love how the maps are designed. It's classroom-centric. That's where the need is going to be. It's just a fantastic plan and a great price. And I commend him and thank him so much. Actually, good work. Thanks.
Thank you. If I could just make one suggestion, next year around this time, we can start looking at our phone system. So yes, just to put that out there on the record.
Actually, have phones at AFM, that would be a
And I believe the voice over internet phone system, to Blake's point, is the same reimbursable that we need to work on, right?
You could utilize the E-rate for that?
Oh yeah, but there is a certain cost that
about one of the few things that
the ones that the Fed that pay a high percentage.
What do you need from us to move forward? Or set to move forward?
We're good to go.
Good to go. Love that.
Awesome. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, public forum, second public forum, if anyone could come up. Okay, school committee forum.
Start with Janton.
I'd just like to thank the people that did come out from the two towns. It's great. We need your support. We need a lot of dialogue. This is great. Now we've been to Millville. We're going to keep going to Blackstone right now. Just sort of an FYI, I did send an email out to Senator Fatman and Representative Quiros and followed that up with a couple of phone calls, and I don't see them here tonight. You guys are here to support us. They did not show up. I think that sends a real strong message. They were invited. They did not show up. How did they respond? I called them on the phone, and I spoke to some of their aides, and I got kind of crickets on the other end of the phone when I asked. So it was disappointing. But, again, I'm glad you're here. We're glad you're here.
So on the other hand, you didn't send me an email, and I did come. So after 4 years, I wanted to just recognize everybody who I've worked with. Excuse me. So I figured out as I was sitting here, I worked with 11 different committee members, 3 different chairpersons, 3 different superintendents, and 1 assistant superintendent. So you've been the best so far. There you go. And I think, Monique, you get it for longevity. With you and you, right? That's it. Right. So a lot of changes. I would like to say, though, that, when I first came on the board, there's a lot of contentiousness. There's a lot of, a little bit of it we saw tonight, but that used to be every meeting. Passion. But that was destructive. This is much more, I think, heading everybody in the right direction. There's more respect here, I think. I think there's a better opportunity for people to air their opinions, share their opinions, and to come to good conclusions. So I think our choice of superintendent and assistant superintendent kind of shows that we worked together to get there. It wasn't easy, but we did, and as a team, I think it's working really well. So the other people I want to recognize, of course, is the administration, the staff. You guys are. I don't know how many meetings you guys have been coming to, but this is great. But really, before I left the house, I was in the other room and I heard my wife on the phone talking to one of her students who had called the house because she was struggling with one of her assignments. And I'm thinking, my wife's at work at 7 o'clock in the morning. She's trying to get out the door to come here and surprise me. And she's helping one of her students. And I think, I don't mean to toot her horn, but I think that's typical of the type of teachers we have in this district. And the staff, you see the staff commitment. Every building you go into, we go into buildings that are 50 years old. You look around, this building's 50 years old. Millville is what, 25 now? 22? You walk in there and it looks like it's 5 years old. So the level of commitment, I think, within the district, the FinComs, you guys working with us, the selectmen, all that's great. The area of criticism I really have to have, and I hate to do it, but it's the parents. We've got some parents who are very involved. We've got parents here. We have parents who are at every school function. They come and meet every teacher every year. You guys see them at your Meet the Teacher nights, but there's a whole group of them. You don't know who they are. You could be standing next to them in the supermarket aisle. You don't know who they are. The ones who aren't reading to their kids, the ones who are just throwing them on the bus, at the end of the day, take them off the bus. Those are the people who aren't watching tonight who I need to get through to, because your kid gets one shot at this, or your kids get one shot at this. It's their education, and if you short shift them, you're going to get the results. Teachers can only do so much. Financing can only do so much. If the parents aren't involved, the kids aren't going to get where they have the potential to go. So, thanks to everybody for the 4 years. It's been great. I've learned a lot. Learned a lot about finances, more than I ever wanted to know. More than on FinCom. So, Rich, there's going to be a seat here. So, you want to switch? I'll wait till you do your budget. Then maybe I'll think about it. But I want to thank you all. It's been a good 4 years. I've learned a lot and I've enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
I want to thank Brian. It was very helpful to me when I first started. I used to sit next to him and then got a friend in between because I think he didn't want me to ask questions anymore. But, and Diane, I know she's not here today, but it is a big commitment. And to do that for 4 years or however long Diane's been doing it for, I'm not even sure. But is a huge commitment to this town, community, school system, and so your efforts are greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank the representatives that came. I'm finally starting to get to know their names, which is nice since we live in the same communities. But I appreciate the dialogue, and I hope there's a lot more of it. Also, I want to thank the school committee for the opportunity to send us to the workshop that Georgette and I went to. It was tremendously helpful. And we did learn about other sessions that maybe we could bring some of those folks here to help us better understand some of these issues too, because they can only touch at the base. And things like funding and things like special education are everybody's budget. One school district told us that their special ed transportation budget was double their actual school transportation budget. So, because we're not the only people fighting the battle. And finally, I'd like to wish our students good luck. Their MCAS tests are starting next week, and I know some of them are nervous about that, but I know they are well prepared. Our teachers do a good job of that, and I think and I hope we'll see huge successes.
Okay. I don't know as much to say.
Well, I wrote mine down, so I forget.
It wouldn't matter. Anyways, I want to say thank you to Brian because I got to talk to you before I got on the school committee, and you helped me out a lot. And I want to say thank you to Diane too, and everybody else for helping me out here. Eventually, I'll get to talk more and be more comfortable, but I'm learning a lot, and it takes time. So, thanks, and I want to say thanks for the spaghetti dinner that we have for the honor students from the middle school, and they were delighted to have Kurt showing there and have him sign. Actually, well, he wasn't there that night, Friday night. But they said, what we heard was, he started handwriting some of the, honor certificates. But then, I think, our superintendent interrupted. And then, that's what I was told. And then they hand-stamped the rest of everything. I don't know if it was made up. I'm pretty cool. So, anyways, thank you to everybody. Thank you for coming here tonight.
I echo. Same thing with his name.
I'm sorry, I got a little emotional crying while you were talking. It's been one of those days, but I mean, everything you said just hits the nail on the head, and it's hard to have someone else sitting at that table, but I'm hoping, that we still move forward and get to where we need to be for the kids. And again, also, like Jane said, MCAS for all the kids. They had a little extra time because of the snow days, so they should be more than ready for that in the next few weeks. And thank you to the town of Millville and Blackstone. One thing I wanted to say while you were up here, and it just kind of rolled over. It's great that you're here because we will know that your decisions were well informed, and we know you're going to do what you can and what is best for everybody. And at least we won't feel like they didn't even know what we needed. The communication this year, I think, has been an abundance above what we've been used to in the past few. So even as hard as it is to make, put the numbers where they need to be, at least we're all going to be able to go to bed at night and know that we tried our hardest and the money is where it needs to be for everybody, for the towns, for the school. So thank you for that.
Again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Brian and Diane as well. I liked. There were times when Brian was feisty. The last couple of years, and I always like feisty Brian. But like I said before, it takes a person with a little bit of gumption to put their name on a ballot, and you've done it twice for here, and I know Diane has done it several times, and it's a lot of work. It's a huge commitment, and I was glad to overlap with you the last couple of years. I loved your, I was on the students coming in, and you were the one of the main proponents that we're getting away from students, we need to see students in here, and it was a great reminder. So with that, we are going to have some cake after we adjourn, so if you've made it this far, have a piece of cake and a little sugar high before you go home. And our next meeting is Thursday, April 9th. And as always, all of the stuff that we went over tonight is online on our website under the agenda. So hopefully people can follow along at home as well as can access it moving forward. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'm seconded by Brian. Seconded by Georgette. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourned. Cake.